Here is exactly what I ate after weighing in for my most recent fight. You can see how I translate the theory into actually a day of eating. Now, a few things to be aware of here. It was technically a same day weigh-in, but the weigh-in was super early in the morning, like 7:30, 8ish, and the fights weren't until after 9 or 10 p.m. So even though it was technically within the same day, it was more like a 13, 14 hour refuel window. So that's the first thing to note. A relatively long, or at least a medium refuel window of about 13 or 14 hours. Weighed in about 8. Immediately after the weigh-in, had my first rehydration drink, which was a ORS, which stands for Oral Rehydration Solution. These are designed for optimal rehydration, to have the optimal concentration of electrolytes. So I recommend using these for rehydrating after a weigh-in. One serving of that, which is 1 liter. And then some just simple, easy to digest carbohydrates like Haribo, gummy sweets are always good ideas. You don't really want anything too heavy after the weigh-in. At the weigh-in, the promoter also had like a big thing of rice porridge for the fighters to eat. So I had a little bit of that as well, but not too much. The key thing in the first sort of hour or two after the weigh-in is managing gut comfort and not being suckered into the temptation of just having loads of food within that first hour or two. I know you might be hungry, but it's key to get the rehydration process going before you start having like full solid meals. So things like Haribo, and as you'll see in the second hour, about 9, things like cereal, sugary cereal, which provides some additional fluid. Chocolate milk with some chocolatey cereal here. Again, not the sort of thing you'd normally be consuming in high volumes anyway during fight camp, but the goals post weigh-in are almost opposite to in fight camp or when you're losing weight. Normally, we want high volume foods that keep you full and don't provide a ton of calories when we're trying to lose weight. However, in the post weigh-in phase, we want lots of carbohydrates and calories, mostly from carbohydrates, but we don't want you to be overly full, because if you go and smash a burger right after the weigh-in, you'll be super full and you won't be able to consume enough carbohydrates because you'll be so stuffed that you can't eat enough simply after that. So first couple of hours after the weigh-in, sugary, low fiber, low fat foods and rehydration drinks, 1 liter per hour. Your total rehydration target should be 1.5 times whatever you've lost in kilograms, and you want to drink that at a rate of 1 liter per hour. So if you lose 2 liters or 2 kilograms of fluid via sweating, you want to times 2 by 1.5, which is 3 liters of rehydration drinks. You would have 3 hours of rehydrating there. Once you start to feel a little bit more human and you feel like you can tolerate a proper meal, you can have something here. You want to keep it high carbohydrate, relatively low fat, and about sort of a couple of hours after the weigh-in, you'll be ready for a serving of proteins. Here I just had some sticky rice, which is, very dense, doesn't fill you up too much, and just some grilled chicken there as well, and just a relatively small portion of that, because the main priority here is getting the carbohydrates in. In terms of how many carbohydrates to consume per hour, it's highly individual dependent. As a rough range, somewhere between 60 to 120 grams is what people can tolerate. However, that upper range of like 90, 100 to 120, you'll struggle if you go with that every single hour. So if you do end up being sort of 100 to 120, then maybe leave it 2 hours between meals. But if you're in the sort of 60 to 90-ish range, you should be able to have something every hour without feeling massively full. And this is when food choices come into play as well. So I had like chicken and sticky rice every hour. I'd probably feel super full. But if you intersperse that with some cereal, some Haribo and stuff like that, you'll be able to manage your gut discomfort or your gut comfort, so it's not too uncomfortable and you don't feel like you're in a food coma or too bloated or anything like that. And then by this third hour, I was feeling pretty full. I already knew that I'd made a decent dent in my carbohydrate intake. So at that point, I decided, right, let's wait another hour. I had a little nap and then woke up again at 12 and then continued my refuel. So finished off the last 300 ml of my rehydration drink. And then I just had some banana and Nutella on some toast. And then this little snack from 7-Eleven, which is like banana with a sort of caramelized type syrup. Again, high carbohydrate, low-ish fat, sort of low to moderate fat, and this was low protein here. Again, the next hour, just a glass of low-fat chocolate milk, so I'd already finished my rehydration targets here. It was just a little bit more fluid, and you can see this milk is is high in carbohydrates, so it's another good choice to have after the weigh-in. About 2 p.m. I had just some small half portion of rice noodles. Again, I was feeling pretty full, and the key thing here is that it was technically a same day weigh-in, so it wasn't like I was gonna go to bed and wake up and have all of fight day to eat to a level of gut comfort. Here it was really important to make sure that I wasn't overly full, because it's always better to go into the fight verging on being slightly hungry rather than feeling full and lethargic and bloated and hoping that your opponent doesn't land too many body shots. So I was being careful with my food volume here, especially because I knew that by sort of 1 or 2, I made a huge dent in my carbohydrate needs. You can see the total for the day is 472, which is about 8.5 grams per kilogram of my body weight. Fats were about 1 gram per kilogram, and protein was about 1.5 grams per kilogram. And then once we start getting into the last few hours before the fight, just having again some like sweets, some like chewy sweets similar to Starburst. And then finally before the fight, I was still feeling pretty full from the earlier meal, so I didn't want to have anything too high in volume, but I just basically wanted some carbohydrates to make sure my fuel stores were fully topped up heading into the fight. About 3 hours before the fight, I had just some Nutella on toast and some jam on another piece, and then just a couple of these fruit chews. Again, really low volume, just like 100 grams or about that of food. Not going to fill me up too much, but you can see it provides a decent amount of carbohydrates, about 1 gram per kilogram of my body weight in the 1 to 4 hours before the fight. And that was it. That was my final meal. I had about 7. I ended up fighting, I think about 10-ish, about 9 or 10, and yeah, got the win. It worked out really well. I felt full of energy in the fight. Went 4 intense rounds. If you've not seen the video, you can check it out. It was a bit of a war, but I didn't feel like lethargic or tired or anything like that at any point in the fight, and I felt like I could have gone 5 more rounds. If nothing else, that's proof that this works, and that following this advice, keeping fat low, keeping fiber relatively low as well. You can see 16 grams for the day, and making sure that carbohydrates are the number one, with a sort of secondary, much less important focus on protein. Carbohydrates are the number one thing. You want to get 8 to 10 grams per kilogram of your body weight. If you cut carbs, a very long lag time within the same day, 12 hours or for a day before weigh-in. I hope it helps. If you've got any questions, feel free to drop me a DM on Instagram. I'll be happy to answer them or create some content for you.